Welcome everyone to what is now a annual tradition of a counselling session after the Pittsburgh Steelers away game. We're going to talk for about half an hour on everything that went down yesterday evening. We're tired, but with everything that happened last night, we felt the need to get it out of our systems as much as anything else. So, welcome to the Believe in Brits podcast, counselling session edition.
Just the same old Browns! Garrett's going to get him, and he knocks the ball away. Caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones! Touchdown! He got it! He got Chubb! He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Wow, what a struggle. The way it should be, I guess. Brownies, here we go! Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies!
Yeah, for anyone that's not yet been able to watch the game, I suggest you do so before listening to this podcast. That's certainly for sure. But 22 points to 26 in Pittsburgh's favour last night. Pittsburgh starting with a defensive score from literally the first play of the game. Cleveland sort of came back into it, and then the worst thing that you could ever imagine as a Browns fan, losing Nick Chubb in one of the more horrible fashions. You know, you talk about NFL horror injuries. This is certainly one of them. Then a little bit of a Cleveland resurgence, followed by a complete capitulation of which Pittsburgh do what Pittsburgh do best, and they capitalize on the chaos and the errors that they create. So, you know, that's a 30-second review of last night. I'm going to bring in both Owain and Shaun, who are dotted around the country. Should I say? Owain from his place in Wales. Shaun from a hotel in Watford. Shaun, how on earth have you been able to actually muster yourself to actually get up and get down to Watford today, of all places?
Glorious, mate. Lovely drive, lovely windy conditions on the M1, just what was needed after a couple of hours sleep, because unsurprisingly, the power nap worked until like 1 a.m, but didn't really get to sleep after the game. I think we were all quite emotional at the end of it for obvious reasons. So, yeah, not probably the ideal day at work to follow what was a very difficult Tuesday early hours viewing experience.
Definitely. Something which I remarked before we came on was the fact that Owain's actually bathed in light today, which is something which you don't normally see if you're watching via one of the video options, but you can actually see Owain's eyes there, and he says that they look rather dead. Is that tiredness? Is that emotion? Shock? What? All the above?
Drained completely out my body. Yeah. Speechless.
Yeah, sounds about right. For those of you that aren't watching via a video option, Owain is all in black. I'm going to assume that's just standard attire, because I'm pretty sure you wear that hoodie everywhere. But it could definitely be, it could definitely carry additional meaning today for sure. Right, gents, we're going to keep this relatively short, because I think that realistically, to dive too much into everything is just going to end up being taxing physically and mentally, but we'll do what we can. Let's first of all just go through the core facets of the game. So total yards, Cleveland dominating 408 yards, 255, with an almost even split between passing and rushing for the Browns, 210 to 198. The Pittsburgh Steelers, however, 200 passing yards and 55 rushing yards. Both teams at around 5 yards of play. Both terrible on third down. Both averaging at around, that looks like about 31% each. Fourth down efficient. Only the Browns went for it on fourth down twice and failed twice. The Browns had 10 minutes more possession. All the rest of it, you know, if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking crap game, but the Browns win easy. But then the main stat, the Browns turned it over four times. 4 times to the Steelers 2, and the Steelers made us pay every time, and we did not, opted for field goals instead. So I'm going to do this as a good, bad, and ugly. I'm going to do it in reverse, so we get at least some positivity going into next week's game, because I think it's important to try and keep that, the season's not over after week 2. There's no need to lose hope entirely. It's obviously terrible as what's happened. Let's jump straight into the ugly end. That Nick Chubb injury. Nothing has been said further about the tests, just simply that they expect it to be a season-ending injury. Let's be honest, by looking at it, it looks like it could be a fair bit more than that as well. We won't know more until those tests are done, and then you've got the rehab stage of it, etc. as well. But you're probably looking at 12 months minimum to, reconstruct a knee by the looks of it. And then you got the ligaments as well to worry about. Owain, what was your initial reaction when you actually saw the injury? Because at first I'm there thinking, oh no, he's down clutching his knee. I didn't think too much of it, and then I just got the message from you going, God, that looks bad.
Yeah, I think I initially had the same sort of view as you when he was clutching his knee. It was like, oh, maybe he's just a little bit dinged up. But then as soon as I sort of heard the Steelers fans, give that noise, it was like, okay,
it was chilling, wasn't it? Yeah.
This is a bad one. And obviously, I thought to myself, right, his leg's clearly not broken, because you'd be able to see, it's not looking in the right place. So for a crowd to be doing that for a knee injury, then this must be a real, real bad one, because knee injuries normally don't look like horrific. Like obviously the leg breaks and stuff like that are really tough to see. So for them to be doing that for a knee injury, I was like, oh, okay, this is proper serious. And yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like, I'm the one on this program that is very much running backs don't tend to matter, but it's Nick Chubb. Like he is the face of the.
Nick Chubb's not a running back. Yeah, Nick Chubb is far more than that to us.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a Browns fan, Nick Chubb means something to you, I think, more than what a running back would mean to any other fan of any other team. So to see him hurt for a start was we don't like to see it, and then to see the severity of the injury was horrendous. And the one I equated to the most probably is Georgia teammate Todd Gurley. This is what sort of worries me with Nick Chubb now, that he's had like a major reconstruction of that knee before. As someone that's had multiple knee surgeries myself, obviously playing a different sport, I know like the toll that they can take on your body, and especially when the ligaments can be fixed. Don't get me wrong, like that's commonplace in sport these days, and science has come a hell of a long way with fixing stuff like that. But the one thing science hasn't done so far is be able to like regrow meniscus and stuff. So that's the worry that I have, because obviously that leads to stuff like arthritis, which Todd Gurley suffered with, and ended his career. And obviously Nick Chubb's not getting any younger. We expected a sort of decline in his physical abilities anyway, in the next couple of years. So it's concerning, like looking forward. Obviously, wouldn't put anything past Nick Chubb, because he's been through it before. He's the hardest working player, I think, you'll see, from what we see. So wouldn't put anything past him. Hope he comes back. But if not, then that's a horrible, horrible way to finish what was an unbelievable Cleveland Browns career.
Absolutely. Shaun, do you want to say your piece?
Yeah, I think Owain's just summed it up there. I think, for me, a lot of people sort of say that Baker Mayfield being drafted was almost like the rebirth of the Cleveland Browns franchise. For me, there was 3 players that came in at a similar time, and that was Garrett, Mayfield, and Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb for me has always been the Mr. Consistent. Garrett's obviously brilliant defensively, but Nick Chubb was just everything you'd want in the game. Everybody can remember the plays that he's made against the likes of the Texans when he had an open end zone and he sort of darted out of bounds at the 1 yard line because he's a selfless player and he's done the right thing for the team. He's just been phenomenal. Even last night, 10 carries, 64 yards at the point that injury happened. Against stout running defense, and he just does it week in, week out. Whoever we've been up against, he's just been phenomenal. Depending what you were watching the game on, I think last night, some people got the replay straight away. Some coverage, it didn't happen, and one thing or another. We obviously live in a day and age now of Twitter and social media, and I'm sure everybody that's comfortable enough in terms of watching it has watched it and has seen it, and it obviously is absolutely horrendous. Let's not try and dress it up any other way. If there is any sort of remote positivity that it's only this or it's only that or it's only the other, anything would be a win at this stage because it just looked like everything was going to be broken, everything was going to be dislocated. The only thing that you sort of look at is you see the guy on the field, it's like I can only imagine. I've got a really low pain threshold, and I can only imagine I would be streaming in tears.
How on earth he kept it together? How on earth the adrenaline must have been next level to stop you from doing that.
Just incredible. And like you said, because the leg didn't appear to be broken, it just looked like he was just held at his knee. Worst case, I thought he's down the helmet's at his knee, and it's just, he'll get up and he'll run this off. And then, I don't want to talk too much about the tackle because I think the tackle is absolutely disgraceful. I think it's an absolute
agreed.
Abysmal. I've seen people defend it today. I've seen people say people need to hit low. I'm sorry, when somebody's engaged up high, as he was, tackling requires you, in my opinion, to try and bring the player down to the ground by wrapping up. If you're throwing your body at a player, you're not trying to tackle him. You're just trying to chop him down. And to do
isn't there a rule about tackling a defenseless receiver or something like that? That should probably start to get brought into the running backs. If you're engaged up high, you should not be allowed to be hit down low.
It just shouldn't happen. There shouldn't be. You can't do high-low blocks in terms of the offensive line and all of that kind of stuff. It just shouldn't happen. Period. I thought it was an horrendous tackle. Well, it wasn't even a tackle. I don't want to give it the credit of calling it that. And to see people defending it is quite sickening, to be honest. Credit where it's due to the Steelers fans. It would have been very easy in a rivalry game for them not to react the way that they did, but I think that shows you the kind of player that Nick Chubb is, that he's got the respect of our fiercest rivals. And ultimately, look, I've made no apology for it. He's my favourite Cleveland Brown. He's been my favourite Cleveland Brown of all time. He's the one that he's the one I brought the official jersey for. All the rest are fakes. Don't tell anybody. That was.
Don't worry, Sean. It wasn't easy enough to tell.
That was the proper one. And look, I would happily, if all that Nick Chubb can do in the rest of his career is come onto the field and take a knee in victory formation, that would absolutely warm my heart immensely. Because, as Owain said, he does not deserve, with the career that he's had, to go out if that is the way that ultimately goes out. Let's not jump to too many conclusions. Let's keep praying that we get some optimistic news. The main optimism is that he fully recovers. If he plays football now, he's almost irrelevant. I know we're going to start to talk about it in terms of what it means moving forward, but on a personal level, just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons as to why I wanted to get this out today. Just to be, because I feel the same as you, Sean. To me, Nick Chubb is the Cleveland Browns. To me, when he went down and then you saw the tackle, it's like, no, not Nick. It felt like it was almost attacking someone I knew. I'm there almost in flipping tears watching it from thousands of miles away. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be a family member or a teammate or a close, or watching that happen, because I'm practically sick to myself. Even now, I felt like I'm going through a bereavement. It's obviously it's almost mad to think of that, because at the end of the day, it's a sports person you haven't met ever and all the rest of it. But he just seemed to embody the rebirth of the organization, if you want. Chubb came around just after the Jets' first winning God knows how long game, and then took over from there. So his career has been the positivity of the Browns organization since that point, and he's been the ever present. He's been the rock. He's been the dependable guy to go for, and to see him cut down literally, and by the in their, there's an advert going around from the NFL saying, it's scripted. I tell you what, I think that someone out there is scripting some up, because it's a sick joke the way in which it has happened. If that does end up being his end of career, I'll be so gutted for him, but just hoping that he ends up being able to, do what he wants to do going forward. Right, so now that's out the way. Now, we haven't heard any news about what it's, the extent of it. All that Kevin Stefanski has come out earlier on today in his press conference and said is that there have been conversations about what to do next in terms of the running back position, to which he has said the words, and these are the ones of which I think all three of us will very, very honestly say is valid. You just don't replace Nick Chubb, but they've got to do something. And there's been Cam Akers rumored. There's been Jonathan Taylor wished for by the by some of the fan base, and Kareem Hunt's been mentioned. Leonard Fournette's been mentioned. I hate it, because I feel like the body's not even cold yet. But we've got a game Sunday, and if it's a case of not getting them in for Sunday, you've got another game the week after. What do you do with this running back group now? And still be competitive?
It's a tough question to answer, and like you said, there is no replacing Nick Chubb. There's no one that's going to come in and do the same things that he can do, because there's no one in the NFL that can do the same things he can do. So it's a tough one. I don't envy AB at all. I think, if it were me, I'd be looking, and he's incredible at these late round pick swaps. You look at someone like Cam Akers, who, like you said, has been rumored today. I saw a tweet from an NFL reporter saying that 4 teams had checked in on him, and that he was a cut candidate as well. So if he's a cut candidate, that means that a late pick swap would maybe be possible. I don't think they want to be in the position of giving up picks, because they haven't got many as it is in this next draft. So yeah, I don't think they want to be in the position of giving up picks. So someone like Akers, someone like Cordero Patterson would pique my interest, because he's obviously got return ability as well. As far as Jonathan Taylor goes, I just don't like. For me, if you were gonna shoot big on someone like Jonathan Taylor, it would be because you haven't addressed a need a QB. You've given the QB,
or you've got a rookie QB that you've got the spare cash to give,
and you're not paying him much. But you've given the QB $230 million. You've spent 3 first round picks on him. You don't need to give him, a multiple round first round pick, or multiple, high round pick plus a massive running back contract. You shouldn't need to do that, because you've addressed the QB situations, in air quotes. But for me, it would be Akers, Patson. I thought Kareem Hunt was absolutely cooked last year. I was saying in the year before even that, he was starting to decline. But I thought really he'd lost a few steps last year, so I wouldn't really go there. Fournette, the same thing. I didn't actually know that Trey Sermon had been released by the Eagles. It must have been a cut down thing, but he got picked up by someone's practice squad today. So, I suppose they could sign him straight off the practice squad, couldn't they?
Here's the question: do you now build a bit of a bigger running back committee, for example.
Yeah, I think that's what you're going to
try
have
and
to do.
Yeah,
And let's face
maybe
it,
a couple of. So let's say you
Yeah.
get Cam Akers. I would kick the tires maybe on Hunt, maybe. Just as
I wouldn't.
I think I could if he's a cheap deal. It's a case of, do you reckon that he could, on like a 3rd and 4th, for example, be able to get you across?
Yeah, I don't see what that would achieve, to be honest. I think like you were happy with Ford and Strong being 2 and 3 anyway. So if you're going to bring in Akers as 1, like I don't think that changes a great deal. Like I said, I don't think Kareem Hunt offers you a great deal at this point in time anyway. But yeah, Cordero Patson, Akers in a late round pick swap, that's probably where I would go.
Yeah, Shaun, how about you, mate?
Yeah, I almost think Kareem Hunt almost feels inevitable. I'm not suggesting that I would advocate for it. I just think the familiarity with the playbook, even if it's a short-term thing, and when I say short-term, it might just be that he's the stopgap for the next few weeks to get us past the bye week. He's obviously somebody that can plug and play in terms of knowing the offense in that regard. I sort of suggested as soon as I suggested in emotions were running high, I instantly just said Jonathan Taylor because it just was the premier back that came to mind. That was on the assumption that we got an offense that was ready to go and win. Based on what we saw the rest of the game, I think we've got a lot more concerns in terms of the offense, to be honest. I looked at like what the 49ers did last year, bringing in CMC. They've got a reasonable running game, but CMC is a kind of transformational player, and he's took that offense to a different level. For me, Jonathan Taylor is a much, much better player than anybody else that we've mentioned there. Cam Akers seems the obvious one because of the noise. What I would say to that is I have real concerns that there is as much noise as what there is in terms of why are the Rams so keen to get rid. There seems to be issues in terms of him off the field for whatever reason. It was very strange that he started week 1 and then was a healthy scratch week 2. Didn't seem to be any logical explanation other than Sean McVay's it's in the best interest of the organisation, which seemed a very strange 360. So something doesn't sit quite right with me in terms of what's going on there. I think ultimately, Stefanski summed it up. We're not going to replace him. So I think ultimately the prudent thing to do is to probably go with the committee approach. Everybody will tell you that they're a dime a dozen, a running back. Well, there's the opportunity to find out how true that theory is.
Yes, absolutely.
I would just bring in a number of them and see if anybody offers you anything. I thought Jerome Ford looked reasonable last night. His stats are skewed slightly with one really big run, but I thought in general terms, considering how dialed into the run the Steelers became, I thought he ran well with the opportunities that he was given. But ultimately, and we'll get onto it next, until this passing game improves, it's kind of a sticking plaster whichever way you look at it, because ultimately that's how we're going to need to win games. You would argue with the way the roster's been built, that's the way we should be looking to win games. So, like I say, I think Kareem Hunt almost feels inevitable that they'll be reaching out, and ultimately, I would take a flyer on Cam Akers if it is a pick swap. If it's like we'll give you a 6th and you give us back a 7th, or a 5th for the 7th, or something along those lines. I can see them potentially floating that out there, particularly if he's going to be a cut candidate, as Owain said. But I do think there's plenty of red flags. I don't think it's anywhere near a slam dunk, and he's certainly a different type of back. For me, we need a more of a power back. If I'm being honest, I think the two that we've got seem more suited to do the other sort of job, if you like, as a traditional 2 and 3 would be. But we'll wait and see.
So someone that I just want to bring up real quick that I haven't seen mentioned too much, and it's a little bit surprising that he hasn't been, is Dearness Johnson.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, familiarity with the offense. He was really, really good when he played for us. Like, let's not get it twisted. He was really, really good. And I just checked his stats. He's had 2 carries so far this season for the Jags. So he's not on a great deal of money there as well. I wouldn't imagine it would take on an awful lot to get him away from the Jags. So that wouldn't surprise me a great deal. And to be honest, like thinking about it, I'd probably rather that than any of the other options. Maybe Patterson over him just because he's got that extra dimension to his game with a return ability. And we saw a couple of mistakes in that, side of the ball last night with DPJ. So yeah, it would be out of those three for me: Johnson, Akers, Patterson, and probably edging towards Johnson or Patterson.
Good show,
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of going back to what we were saying in the summer as well, when we were talking about, what does a Watson team look like, and then looking at the importance of the running back role and all the rest of it. This is where these conversations will start to bear some fruit, as to whether or not, we need that, that 5-yard a carry rushing game that we need, because by the looks of it, if you go down a Patterson or a Johnson route, and you're just sort of like building a committee of twos essentially, to go and get it done, you're kind of just looking to enable the pass game more than anything else, by just being able to threaten the run every now and then. So yeah, it'll be interesting. While we're talking about the passing game, let's go on to what the bad part of our good, bad, and the ugly are, and let's take a look at the offense in general. So it started out bad. Started out real bad, ugly, pretty much, with Harrison Bryant fumbling the first pass of the game directly to the Steelers for the score. Then looked very solid for a few drives. Obviously, getting some points up in the first and second, 14 points in the first and second quarter in the end. So that we were only a little behind going into the break. But then kind of just falling off a cliff halfway through the third quarter and unable to move the ball at all in the fourth. And I've got some stats here that's really going to drive something which I think that we've said quite a bit on the pod the last several months. Really, probably concerns that we had coming into the new season and just sort of bearing fruit here. So Deshaun Watson, 22 completions for 40 attempts, 235 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Now, you could argue the interception's not as bad because it was in the hands of Bryant, but let's table that for a second. You've got the fact that he was sacked 6 times, to which I would say that about 4 of them are his own doing. The QB off-target rates, the percentage of throws of which are completely off-target that don't include spikes or throwaways, Watson is the worst in the NFL, considerably. So Jordan Love is 23.1%, Watson is 27.6% of throws. He is also dead last in EPA, so yards gained versus EPA per play. He's he's 31st. Sorry, the only one worse, Kenny Pickett on the other side of the ball. So and also we paid $230 million for this man. So there are a lot of questions to be asked here. I'm trying to think of what the question is that I was supposed to be asking you guys now. So offense was devoid of ideas, first of all, when Nick Chubb left the game. Is this more on Stefanski or is it on the fact that Watson couldn't execute? Because it looked like whenever there was a clutch play to be had on third down, Watson could execute the sideline game, and he couldn't do it for anything else. Is it a case of not scheming the right things against the defense that was able to change itself up in the second half? Or is it just the fact that Watson sees deers in headlights and goes straight to getting sacked as quickly as possible? I open it up to either of you.
I'll jump in because I think Owain's either on mute or his microphone stopped working. For me, I think Jake Burns does a really good job of breaking down film. And if you've watched some of that over the course of today, there were plenty of plays to be made that were out there. We said last week, didn't we? Nobody mentioned Kevin Stefanski's play calling last week because we won the game. And here we are, we've lost the game and people are questioning his play calling. I'm got to be honest, it's like a broken record for me and I get sick of it. Kevin Stefanski can call a game. There's no problem with Kevin Stefanski calling the game. We can always argue that he should do this more often, that more often. In general terms, he gets people open. There's plays there that are to be made. Watson far too often yesterday clutched the ball for longer than he needed to. Some sort of double clutches before he let go of the ball resulted in incompletions where if he'd have actually just let it go and trusted what he saw, that sort of split-second hesitation would have been the difference between a completion and not. He seems to default to run to his left when trouble is coming, which isn't necessarily a good thing because that's running directly to your blind side, so you've got no idea what's out there. There was one play in particular where there was a bubble screen set up to the left. He's looking right at it. Elijah Moore, he's got two blockers in front of him. He's wide open. He's literally 5 yards from Deshaun Watson, and he either doesn't see it or what, I don't know. But that's another play that he sort of takes a sack. The frustration yesterday, there was a couple of times when he scrambled out of a sack, and you thought, right, okay, get rid of it. Play's gone, get rid of it.
And then just nuzzles straight into a sack.
That's it. Persisted to still hold on to it and run around until he did get sacked. I thought the interior of the line really struggled yesterday. I thought the interior of the line in particular was poor. We said last week, TJ Watt will make his plays. I thought DeJuan Jones was really good last night.
DeJuan Jones was the guy on the line last
DeJuan
night.
Jones was really good last night.
And he showed at wills no end.
Yeah. I thought, like I said, the interior I thought really struggled, really, really struggled. I thought, Larry Ogunjobi was made to look like Aaron Donald by Wyatt Teller most of the night. I thought Teller had a terrible game. Ethan Pocic, not much better. I thought it was a really poor performance, but that doesn't excuse, like I say, some of what we saw. So many throws off target. I mean, people could argue about the final play, whether it was DPI or not. To be honest, it was just delaying the inevitable anyway. If we'd have got the first down, I have no confidence we'd have punched it in. I thought, to be honest, I actually thought it was a decent enough now call. I thought the ball was high and away. I didn't think DPJ was going to catch it anyway. There were a couple of nice throws in there to sort of give some credit where it is due. And I think that's the frustration because you are seeing glimpses of what might be, but it's far, far, far too inconsistent. Nowhere good enough. And to be honest, I give it 2 games until the alarm bells are really, really ringing. We're in a hole whether we like it or not. Now we're stuck in it. Hopefully the only way out of it is by it getting better. But unfortunately, we're going to be stuck in this whether it's a shit show or not. But for me, I thought it was awful last night. Outside of a couple of bright sparks, which we'll leave to give them their credit when it's due at the end. But on the whole, I thought it was absolutely piss poor.
Yeah. Owain, anything to add there? I mean, the blocking was definitely something for me that, definitely needs to be called out. I think that Jedrick Wills is finally catching some heat, for what is consistently poor blocking, especially, when he loses. When he loses, he doesn't look to fight back. He just claims it as a loss. Shaun's just spoken about Watson basically just falling into sacks. What is a blueprint for Sunday? For we got a game on Sunday with practically no running game. What's the easy fix here?
There is no easy fix. To be honest, it's just the only thing that can sort this offense out is number 4 playing a hell of a lot better than what he has been. I'm sick to death of seeing people standing up for him today or yesterday. Why? What reason has he given you to stand up for him since he's been a Cleveland Brown? Absolutely none. And you can blame it on the offensive line if you want. That wasn't perfect yesterday, but let's get this straight. 32 other offensive line or 31 other offensive lines in this league aren't perfect every week in pass protection, but the better QBs make up for it. You don't see Chiefs fans lamenting the offensive line every week, even though you probably couldn't name one offensive lineman off the Chiefs. I can name one. Creed Humphrey is a center. Couldn't name another Chiefs offensive lineman.
And even then, who's naming centers?
Exactly. Like, literally, this problem is league wide. Like, there's not enough offensive linemen to go round, but you can't just blame everything on an offensive line. If he's holding the ball longer than he should be, more sacks are going to happen. I thought, he held the ball so long last night. It felt at times.
Yeah.
And it felt like as well.
But it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon with him. I shouted with you guys last week, he's holding on to the ball too long.
And I think at times that's probably helped him at times in the past to create these big plays. But like, I think in Stefanski's offense, obviously we had that conversation with like Beckham Jr. and the rhythm and timing thing. That's probably going to creep into Watson's play as well. But what I did think last night was he kept looking at Devon Jones to see if TJ Watt was going to beat him. And then by the time that he realised he wasn't going to beat him, Highsmith was round Wills, or Ogunjobi was past Taylor, and then the play was dead, or he was trying to do some heroic stuff on the outside. And it was so tough to watch. So tough to watch. And I go back to people defending him. I've got no time for it. And you look at last season, Jacoby Brissett gets us over the line in that game. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever.
Absolutely.
No doubt in my mind whatsoever.
Baker gets us through those two.
Baker gets us through it. Like, I don't really want to mention Baker because everyone gets up in their feelings about him all the time and people mentioning him and the whole Baker bro. So I'd rather use Brissett as an example. But like, he's a career backup. He would have won us that game last night. We didn't pay 3 first-round picks. We didn't pay £230 million and give him all of that guaranteed. So we've got no way out, like Shaun said, for him to be a bottom 5 QB. And by every single metric you can think of, he is a bottom 5 QB at the moment. And it's frightening. It's frightening as a Browns fan because it's like, what the hell happens here? Because as much as I've, had a laugh and a joke about DTR and how good he's been in preseason and stuff, they can't put him in. As soon as they put him in, Kevin Stefanski gets fired because that's admitting defeat on Watson. Like, there is no win here other than Watson figuring it out. And he has given us absolutely no indication, unfortunately, that he's going to do it.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. And I think, we jab at each other in jest, mate, but, it's harder watching Mayfield have success at the minute because it's the obvious one to call back to and say, why did we do this? Cool, but we weren't podding at the time, but I remember on the day that this trade happened, and I think everybody summed it up. Why on earth? Why did the Cleveland Browns need to be the team that took that risk? They didn't need to be that team. Nobody needed to be that team. We decided to get involved in it. We now reap what we sow.
And we doubled down on the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
The fully guaranteed contract is what grinds us to a halt.
Yeah. And we now reap what we sow. They've made the bed. They've got to line it now. The only way out of it is, as we've just said, for him to improve. The thing that's incredibly frustrating, and we'll get on to the good. Trust me, we're coming to the good because we need to cheer.
We are. We're 1 point away, I promise.
Yeah. And the final point then, until we get to the good, is this team only, it seems, needs semi-competent quarterback play. It doesn't need Deshaun Watson to be a top 5 quarterback. He should perform like one based on the contract that he's been given. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to give him a free pass, far from it. But if he was performing as a top 20 quarterback in the NFL at the minute, we would probably be comfortably sitting 2-0. I've read people last night saying we lose that game with Mahomes. We lose that game with Joe Burrow. We lose that game with Justin Herbert. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not being funny. We win that game in all likelihood
with Sam Howell,
with Desmond Ridder, with Sam Howell. Anybody, you could name anybody that played this weekend, and I'm struggling to find anybody, to be honest, maybe outside of Zach Wilson, that would have actually done anything other than win that game last night. Because I
actually think Zach Wilson would have given it a go. Would have probably ended up around the same scoreline.
It didn't
Ish.
need a lot. And to be honest, like I say, this is why for me, well, look, let's be positive. There's plenty of reason for optimism based on the good that's coming up. But these performance improvements need to happen, and they need to happen quickly because the noise will grow. The people that are defending him, there's enough people that want him to fail. If you hated the trade and you want it to fail, you've had nothing but justification in the last 2 weeks plus the 6 games that he played last season.
Yeah.
That noise.
And I think and I think it's important to also point out here that to those who are highlighting these issues now, they're not necessarily haters. I want the trade to work out personally because this is my team. I'm locked in. My missus tried to pull me out of Brands fandom when we were 0-16. It ain't happening. If it wasn't happening at 0-16, it's not happening now. And I've just watched someone that's felt like my flipping son just sort of do the football equivalent of die on a field. I want vindication. I want us to do it for him, sort of thing. And unfortunately, we are in this toxic relationship, seemingly, with this quarterback that's just not doing his end of the deal. I want it to work. I want to be proved wrong so badly because at the very least then it will have been worth something. But I feel like we're not even getting the glimpse. We're not even getting this is what it could look like. I've been given none of that. I've not been given any true optimism. Anyone that's really looked for optimism has probably seen the fact that he can pull out a QB option and go 15 yards down the field. That's probably about it because I don't really see much else going on there. Right. Should we get on to the good? Shaun's been teeing it up now for what feels like 10 minutes. This defense. We said that if this defense could hold the Steelers to about 20 points, then we should win comfortably. Things didn't happen that way because of points. Please listen back to the last half hour. But the defense held the Pittsburgh Steelers to 12 points. The 26 on there is because of the fact that the offense gave up 14 points. The defense gave up 12. And really, it's a harsh 12. They had one bad play the entire game. I think you two would probably agree with me as well. That one broken bit of communication about 15 minutes after Nick Chubb's injury. I do think that that's probably had a bit to play in the fact that your heads just aren't screwed on in that moment. Pickens ends up... Denzel Ward is supposed to go man by the looks of it and thinks that there's a soft zone in the middle that's supposed to pick him up. It didn't pick him up. That was the only bad play. They were on to pick it like a shot. I think the entire defensive line was awesome. Myles Garrett had a quiet game, but it's because of the fact the entire line went at Pickett. As to whether or not whatever they were doing to Garrett, it didn't matter because Smith was getting there, Tomlinson was getting there, Harris was getting there, anybody was getting there. It was awesome to watch. The cornerbacks are on the players like a flash. They weren't getting any more than 5 yards away. What we've had the last few years, especially with Joe Wood's defenses, is that if you have a pass caught, it'd be 10 yards before they get taken down. They don't have a moment to breathe anymore. Like, yeah, you'll pass the catch. You'll pass the catch, you'll catch the pass, but you're going to be catching it in traffic, and then you're going straight down. It's awesome to watch. And then, where the hell is Owain is eating a lot of humble pie when it comes to Delpit. Like an insane amount of humble. Just these last 2 games, Delpit is looking like flipping defensive player of the year half the time. It's definitely Pro Bowl material. I think I saw a stat today that put Cleveland as the best defense for I think it was DVOA and also EPA conceded. Both of those stats, Cleveland are top currently, and that's after playing the Bengals for one, and then having a tricky a tricky night in Pittsburgh as well. And, I don't see them slowing down against Tennessee. The Steelers didn't get inside the 30-yard line all night. I'm sorry. The 30-yard line. They didn't have a single play inside the 30. I'm unsure if that's ever happened before. You can't put any superlatives on this defense that haven't been said in the last few days, because it's immense. And like you were saying, Owain, it might have been Shaun, maybe both of you. You don't need good QB play to win these games, by the looks of it. You just need to not be shit. You need to not make stupid mistakes. All of a sudden, you score 20 points a game, you are winning 10 games. That's how it's suddenly looking, because the defense will not give up 20. That's been it for this part. Tell me if because I look at the Titans on Sunday and I think that the defense is going to do more of the same. I don't think that Tannehill and Henry are going to do much against it. You can see as to how they play. They're a bit more predictable. They're kind of like Pittsburgh level predictable when it comes to how they're going to approach the game. So I think that Jim Schwartz will have that totally handled. But tell me if I'm going off a bit too far into the sunset here. But this defense is legit.
No, it's been incredible, and I think it's one of the reasons why I think maybe AB will survive if things go south, is because you look at the defense that he's built, and it's got talent everywhere. Like, there's not one area of this team now you can say is weak on defense. Most of the offense is the same on paper as well, but like defensively, incredible. And Jim Schwartz getting the best out of them, which is great. I thought like Miles come in for a little bit of criticism by a few of our fans last night that I saw, just because stat sheets doesn't show anything, but like he was on Pickett's shoelaces a few times, and there was one time where he got rid of the ball, and it was a really bad decision to get rid of it, and he was lucky that it just bounced before JOK.
Yeah, you don't need the sack numbers. You don't need the sack numbers if the defense is playing this well.
The pressure was there from him. The pressure was there, like you say, from Hurst, Tomlinson, Harris, Ogbo, and Smith. So that part of the defense has been incredible. Like you say, the secondary, Delpit's been unbelievable, to be fair to him. Probably being the best player on defense, which says a lot considering how good the rest of them have been. Ward, I thought, had a really good game again last night. Obviously, there was a load of concern about him going through a rough patch last season. He seems like he's got over that, already. He was really good last night, minus that Pickens reception, which, none of us can be sure were on him, or we don't know if it was a linebacker.
To be honest with you, I'm happy to chalk that one. Defenses can have one bad play.
That's going to happen. Like, you're not going to not concede points like every week, but if they can keep them to 12, 15, even 20, this team should be more than fine in getting a bunch of wins. And you mentioned the Titans on the weekend. Their offense is hardly inspiring themselves, like you say. I would expect more from more of the same from the defense. Obviously, it's at home as well, so that'll help. Hopefully, we see more of the same on defense, and hopefully the offense can sort of follow their lead and step up. And for once, we see a complete performance from the Cleveland Browns, because it doesn't come around all that often. We've seen one or the other play pretty well in the last few years. But, I think the pieces for this defense to be consistent are there, and they just have to go and do it every week. And I don't see a reason why they can't.
Yeah. Something which I found really encouraging as well. Smith, Ward, and Newsome were all off the field at the same time at one point last night. Defense looked unchanged. The defense looked ready to go, ready to help out everyone else. It was as if there were no issues. This defense can recycle and it can have each other's back. And when you talk about consistency, that's going to be a major part of it. Being able to all be into it and have that. And like you say, AB might be able to just ride on the defense's coattails, because 15 points in 2 games. That's how much the defense conceded. Yeah. Wow. Shaun, anything to add, bud?
No, look, I think you guys have covered it. I think, the depth is the thing that's really encouraging. I think, the defensive line, the front four have always been okay, but it's once you start taking Garrett out and you start rotating people in and out that we've had issues. Everybody that comes in, I think Maurice Hurst has been an absolute revelation. He was one that was signed as a bit of a flyer. Might work out, might not. I mean, he was phenomenal last night. I thought it was really, really good. You can see the improvements in terms of defending the run, in terms of what Tomlinson's brought. Obviously it was an eye-popping contract for that sort of position, but I think the ends are justifying the means in terms of that one. It's allowing others to do what they need to do. Secondary was excellent. Look, the whole defense was excellent. Like you say, they gave up 12. I think 3 of those were essentially because I think the Steelers caught a punt at like the 40, and then there was a fair catch interference on the special teams play. I think they actually started at like the 45. I think they gained about 5 yards, and Boswell kicked a 55 yarder. So, you could almost chalk those 3 off as well, to be fair to the defense.
Absolutely.
Like it was a phenomenal effort, and I think and this is the real frustrating thing, isn't it? That it felt last night, as much as, let's not go back into it too much, as much as you don't want to run the ball on every down, it felt like the Browns could have kneeled every time on offense and just punted the ball away and still won the game last night.
I was about to bring up that message, because you're absolutely right. I enjoyed watching us on defense more than offense 100-fold.
It felt like the whole game. Yeah, and I said to you guys before we sort of called it a night, it felt like a game that we absolutely dominated and were never ever going to win. And I just had that vibe the whole time I was watching it. It just felt like from that first play, it's like, right, the Cleveland Browns are obviously a superior team to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns have dominated on both sides of the ball. Even though our offense has been absolutely shite, it's still been a lot better than what Pittsburgh offense has been. We've dominated the game, we've dominated every statistical category, and we've still come up short. And, we've got a thing on this pod when we started off with that you put together a little montage, and there's that famous, the same old Browns, boys, same old Browns.
Yeah.
That is one phrase as a Browns fan that I absolutely hate hearing. But until they stop doing shit like they did yesterday, we're going to keep getting it. This defense deserves an awful lot better. I'm sure that, I've got every reason to believe it will continue. That's the only thing I'd say, just pump the brakes a little bit. The Steelers' offense is garbage. All right, so let's wait and see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But the signs are encouraging. Final shout out for me just on the good, mate, because certainly I want to go and grab something to eat, and I'm sure we'll be wrapping up in the non too distant. I thought Amari Cooper was brilliant yesterday. I thought Amari Cooper, considering it looked as though all weekend he was going to be inactive, with what he was given yesterday, I thought his effort was phenomenal. He made lots of contested catches. It seems a long time ago now. We were talking in the off season about Amari Cooper possibly being the wide receiver that we moved on from. He's absolutely staking his claim that he's the number one receiver on this offense, and long may it continue. So he was excellent.
Also, loving the fact that they might have just told him to sit it out, but Cooper wanted to be a game day decision. He wanted to have it on his shoulders. And like you say, he balled out. He absolutely balled out, and he definitely deserves to have that claim state there. Yeah, he was fantastic. Every clutch player that he was called upon, he got. And there were some beautiful catches in that. Right, as you say, Shaun, you need to get yourself some dinner. I think that we could all do with some sleep as well. I know that I sure as hell can. Just as a heads up to everyone, that will be our pod for the week. I will personally be off for 3 weeks now. I'm off to Japan. Don't miss me too much. Owain and Shaun will still be providing the pods during this interim period. I believe that there might even be one directly after the game on Sunday, but I'll let them coordinate that. You'll hear updates through Twitter and anything else as per. Owain has those Twitter details, as long as Elon doesn't monetize the platform before then. So stay tuned, everyone, for that. Just before we go, guys, seeing as we've just had that nice bit of positivity towards the end, Titans on Sunday, win or loss?
I think the Browns will win. I still remain optimistic that it'll be a good season, and I think we get back on track. Me and I might even get on the mics before Sunday to give it a bit more of a preview, because we haven't given it too much. But I would say win based on where I am today.
Agreed.
Owain?
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed.
I think we see a better version of the offense as well. I don't know whether that's more blind optimism, but
you definitely need to get to bed, mate. We're coming out with comments.
Maybe they get a kick up the arse this week. That's definitely what I'm hoping for. Look, at the end of the day, even Baker, after having a couple of bad performances, will come out with an absolute barnstormer. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something like that from Watson as well. So that's us. I look forward to listening to you two over the course of the next few weeks while I'm away. Let's hope that we have a bit more to celebrate by the time that I get back. So from me, I'll see you guys soon. From these two, maybe later on in the week. Stay tuned. This has been the Believe in Brits podcast.